Good day. My name is Dinma Nwobi. My tribe call me the Queen of Happiness and Human Flourishing, and I have a conversation I'd like for us to have today. But I want us to start it by just imagining a miracle. So with your permission, let's begin with a miracle. So I'd like you to imagine that you go to bed tonight and a miracle happens while you were asleep. When you wake up in the morning, what would you like to see happening in your life that will convince you that indeed a miracle has happened in your life? Think about it. What do you so desire? What do you want? What do you wish to see happening? And if you slept and that happened as a miracle, what would you see happening the next day that will convince you that a miracle has indeed happened in your life? Now think about it this way. What if the only way for that miracle to become a reality is for you to communicate and negotiate for your needs, your interests, and even your rights with authenticity? Not just this dream that you just imagined. What if there were other miracles that could have happened in your life, but they depended on you speaking up for yourself, communicating what you needed, negotiating for your interest, and even asking for what is rightfully yours and doing it with authenticity? Today, I'd like for us to have a conversation around practicing authenticity through self-advocacy, and we'll be looking at it using the flourishing circle. This is in support of the work by Mayah's legacy. Mayah's legacy is shining light on the mental health impacts that follows a pregnancy loss and even educating people on the long-term effects it can have on the family. And they do this through spreading the word, speaking out, and taking action. And this presentation you are listening to is in support of the beautiful work that Mayah's legacy is doing. Let me tell you a little bit about myself and why I'm coming here to share this conversation with you. Like I said, I'm fondly called the Queen of Happiness and Human Flourishing because I love to cheer people to embrace their authenticity and enjoy flourishing more meaningful lives. As a result of my background and my training, I don't just want to talk. I adapt a science-based, solution-focused well-being approach to conversations around supporting people to navigate life's challenges resiliently and then to move towards their desired goal. Because I recognize that everyone, including you, is an expert of their life. And I'm just an expert of my coaching and professional tools, and with which I courageously empower my clients and people I come in contact with like you to be, to do, and to achieve what you desire and deserve. And it's my belief that with the time you're going to spend listening to this topic that I'm bringing your way, you will indeed grab something that will lead to more flourishing in your life. Why this topic, and what is it that I've learned about it that I want to share with you? During the 2020 coronavirus lockdown, I began to say to myself, well, how was I to contribute to humanity? And I chose that I was going to start doing free consultation calls, particularly for women. And between March 2020 and December 2020, I consulted with over 80 women. And what I'm sharing with you here is from my case files. I found something common with more than 80% of the women that I sat with. Although the challenges they were dealing with were different, okay, but there was one common denominator that I found in most of them. And it was that these women had lost their voice, primarily to shame and to pain. As I continued to interact with them, I noticed three things in common. One was that a lot of them were trapped by toxic pain and pressure. Secondly, was that they did not even know what they wanted. Like I could say to somebody, so what do you need now? When was the last time you were happy? When was the last time you really spoke out for something that mattered to you? And lastly, again, one common thing was that they did not have the audacity, even when they knew what they wanted, to ask for what they wanted. And so consequent of this work that I did with them, I created the Get Your Power Back project, which was simply an intervention to teach these women the dynamics of healing so that they can release themselves from the shame, from the pain, from the hurt that they feel, either as inflicted by themselves or their loved ones. I also went through the dynamics of resilience with them to teach them how to struggle better. Because like you and I, there is so much we're dealing with. If it's not the loss of a pregnancy, it's the guilt of it. It's even having to keep pushing on for the rest of the family in spite of that aching pain in your heart. So you need to learn resilience. Thirdly, I also took them through the dynamics of authenticity. And gratefully, these women became women who got their power back. And I continue to run the Get Your Power Back project even up until now. And what were the common things that happened when they got their power back? It was that they became healed. They were able to let go of the pain, let go of the bitterness, let go of the resentment. Secondly, was that they learned to tap into the wisdom from their past and current experiences. I don't know the wisdom you may have tapped from the loss that you've suffered. And rightly so, your loss is valid. But then what have you learned from it? How have you been able to harness it into a resource that would help you going forward? Thirdly, these women got back their audacity to speak up for their interests, their needs, and their values. So I'm going to share a bit with you what I did with them, but particularly in the context of how to self-advocate, how to speak up for yourself. Okay, my slide is a bit. So we're going to be looking at this with the flourishing circle. And that is the circle we're going to use to talk about practicing authenticity. That we know from research that the more you are self-aware, the more you know yourself, what matters to you, the resources that you have, the things that are important to you, the more you know why you need to speak up for yourself, then you can go to the stage of self-compassion, where even you will embrace your audacity to speak up for what you want, and also embrace your audacity to forgive yourself for the times you did not speak up. And of course, self-care, where you recognize that speaking up for yourself, negotiating and talking about your needs and your interests is actually self-care. Is actually when you're able to express what you want in an assertive manner, is you caring for yourself. And so if you've lost the confidence to talk about what matters to you, let's see how you can regain that. But I think we need to first address the guilt and the shame that you feel. Now, if you've ever been a person who has been, trapped by guilt, trapped by shame, that, oh, maybe there was a time I should have spoken up, but I didn't speak up. And so because of that, you're blaming yourself, you're judging yourself. You need to let go. You need to free yourself from the guilt and shame that you feel for stifling your own voice. When I was talking to the founder of Mayah's Legacy, and she shared something profound with me. She said that with her interaction with some of the people who had gone through the pain, the excruciating pain of pregnancy loss, some of them said to her, they felt an intuition, maybe during the course of the pregnancy, or when they visited their doctor, or when they noticed something happening that maybe did not go in line with what culture wanted them to do, or what even the medical personnel said. But then they didn't have that impetus to talk about what they were feeling, to talk about what their intuition was saying to them. So I don't know if you're somebody like that, and you're saying, oh, maybe this would not have happened if I spoke up earlier. Or you're saying to yourself, there are many things, my life would have been better, my miracles would have happened if I had just spoken up a bit sooner. Free yourself from that guilt and that shame of stifling your own voice. So I invite you to do this forgiveness exercise. Now, if you're driving and listening to this, you may want to do it when you're stationary, okay? Because it would involve some writing. And if you are where you can participate in this exercise now, I don't want you to just keep watching. Please, I implore you, get your journal or get a sheet of paper. Okay, and let's do this exercise together. So in your paper, you're going to divide that sheet into 3 columns like I have on the screen. On the first column, the heading will be what you should have spoken up about. The second column would be what held you back from speaking up. And the third column would be what you forgive yourself for. If you've written that, then let's face the first column. And if you need to pause this video so that you can do that, please pause it and then continue when you have successfully divided your sheet into 3 columns. So now, in the moment, I invite you in a moment to just begin to reflect on what are the things you think you should have spoken up about in your life that you did not speak about. I want you to begin to write them down. As far back as you can remember, just allow yourself, trust your subconscious to remind you and just write them down. And as you're doing this exercise and you feel emotional, you feel like you're tearing up, you feel like crying, it's okay. Embrace your emotions because your emotions have wisdom in it. Okay, so do that. Write all the things you think you should have spoken up about that you didn't speak up about. And then go to the next column. What do you think held you back from speaking up? What were the barriers? Were they cultural barriers? Were they barriers about beliefs that you have believed? Were there barriers about a conflict of your values? Was it barriers about not having that confidence or not thinking that they would listen to you? Just write what you think were the barriers that held you from speaking up. And as you do that, I want you to now begin to consider for yourself, what do you forgive yourself for? So you want to write the things you forgive yourself in the context of the things you should have spoken up about or the guilt and shame that is eating you up so that you can release yourself from that pain, from that shame, from that bitterness, from that resentment, from that guilt in this self-forgiveness exercise. And if you've written that out, I'd like for you to be in a position where we can go through this exercise in a solemn way. For everything you've written down as the things you forgive yourself for, I want you to read it out to yourself in this manner. I forgive you, Chidinma, for blah, blah, blah. I forgive you. So you insert your name. And tell yourself, you are speaking to yourself and you are forgiving yourself. So I forgive you, Chidinma, for blah, blah, blah. And as you do that, I want you to recognize that you may not be able to travel back in time to fix your mistakes, but you can move on into the future with a clean, a forgiving, and a compassionate spirit. Okay? And as you do that, how do you feel? If you need to revisit this after listening to this video, please feel free to do that. And all through this week, I will encourage you to repeat these affirmations to yourself until every fiber of your being believes it. I welcome kindness, compassion, and love into my life. I love, forgive, and accept myself with all of my imperfections. I welcome kindness, compassion, and love into my life. I love, forgive, and accept myself with all my imperfections. And the more you repeat that, the more you will feel your heart feeling lighter from that pain, shame, or guilt. Let's talk more about self-compassion. I don't know why this just jumps. I'll see if I can control it better. So please forgive me for that. Okay, I'll do this. This works better. Okay. So just as we were talking about that, if you finish the exercise on forgiveness, let's begin to practice authenticity through self-advocacy. Because first you need to understand self-awareness. Who are you? What matters to you? Because if you recognize, if you have a healthy self-perception, then you will speak up for yourself. And if you know consciously what matters to you, then there will be that propelling force that wants you to speak up and get that matters to you. Okay, so time may not permit us to begin to go into some exercises, but if you're curious to explore a scientific way of understanding what really matters to you, I will share a QR code at the end. You just connect with me and I will share with you the values elicitation exercise so that you can get to understand what truly makes life meaningful for you. Next is, what strengths can support you to speak up for yourself? When next you need to speak up for yourself and those barriers that you faced in the past come up, how do you navigate those barriers? What are the strengths that you know that you have that is core to you, that is you do effortlessly and you know that work that you find very engaging? Now, there's a scientific approach to strengths, which is also a resource that I will share with you so that you can get to understand your signature strengths. And when you are facing any barrier to speak up, then you can lean towards it. The next thing is self-compassion. So when you know who you are, what matters to you, and what are your strengths, how can you love yourself for speaking up? I want you to know that each time you do not speak up for what is important for you, you are not showing love to yourself. So how can you love yourself? By speaking up. How do you know when your soul is speaking to you? How do you listen? How do you pick the data that your soul is communicating with you? And how do you create the harmony between when to push out words and when to pull in words? This is what self-compassion is. And the more you learn about, the more you practice it, the more you can actually self-advocate. So there is a lady who's done extensive research on self-compassion, Kristen Neff, and she has this assessment that helps you to know where you are at in how you show compassion to yourself. It's part of the resource that I will also share with you at the end. The next thing you want to consider in practicing authenticity is self-care. What do you need to speak? What do you need to speak up about that which you've no? What do you need to speak up about that you have kept off for too long? You know, I said that you are the expert of your life and nobody knows you better than yourself. Is there something you think you need to speak up about that you've been keeping up for so long? When will you speak up about it? How will you speak up about it? What are you denying? What is stopping you from caring for your soul by negotiating for what you need? If it's a barrier, how do you navigate that barrier? Have you identified it? So I'm urging you, you need to practice befriending your mind chatter, sitting with the thoughts and emotions that are crawling all over your head, maybe for things about the past or in the present, and really know what you need. And then take baby steps to begin to speak. So if there are 10 things you think you have kept off for too long that you need to speak about, start with one. Create an action step that will enable you to speak about it. Identify the barriers that has held you from speaking up about it and begin to deal with the barriers one after the other. And if it is something you feel, I don't have the resources to deal with, talk to Mayah's Legacy, work with a coach to help you to really sit with it, because speaking up for yourself, self-advocacy is self-care. And nobody can care for you better than you can care for yourself. So I want to help you with this. You need to create an action plan to speak up. Yes, you may say, oh, I want to speak up, but your wishes Like they say, if wishes were horses, beggars would ride. It's not enough to say, I wish I can speak up. It is you taking baby step, 1% improvement. So bear in mind right now, what is one thing you want to speak up about? And before I lead you through how to create this action plan, let me ask you for a moment, what does authenticity mean to you? Because we're saying you want to speak up for your needs. You want to negotiate for what you want in an assertive way by practicing authenticity. In all of my research and work as a positive psychology coach, one of the definitions of authenticity that deeply resonates with me is the definition by Brené Brown. Brené describes authenticity as the daily practice of letting go of who you are supposed to be and embracing who you are. Now, I know you wish that you didn't lose that precious soul. I know you wish that things may have turned out better. I know even in this present time, there are situations in your life that you're saying, this is not what I bargained for. This is not where I want to be. This is not where I want to be. But authenticity is daily practicing, letting go of who you think you are supposed to be. So I encourage you today, give yourself permission to be human. Your pain is valid. My heart is with everyone who has lost a child. Your emotions are honest and valid. How you feel, it's completely human. Yet, I implore you, let go of what you think was supposed to be and embrace what is. So even if in the past you wish you had spoken up, but today you want to practice authenticity by speaking up more, I want you to write down 3 things so that you can take baby steps that you need to speak up about. What are the barriers that have stopped you from speaking up about it so far? Or barriers that you envisage may come up even as you speak about it. It could be speaking to your children, could be speaking to your spouse, could be speaking to your loved ones, could be speaking up in your community, could be speaking up at work. It could even be speaking up to yourself. What do you need to speak up about? Just 3 things. And for each of them, what are the barriers stopping you from speaking up so far? And based on what you've learned, that you need self-awareness, self-compassion, and self-care to speak up more by embracing what already is and letting go of what you think is supposed to be, what action steps are you going to take to speak up more? As you think about that, I want to remind you, you are the expert of your life. Nobody knows you better than you. Nobody desires that you flourish and be in health, even as your soul flourishes. Nobody knows you like you know yourself. So I want you to embrace that. And I want to encourage you, irrespective of what it looks like, you actually have within you all that you need. And all that you need, you have. That even if there is an insight you think you do not need, you have the capacity to learn it. Even if there were times you've not spoken up for yourself in the past, you have the capacity to begin now to speak more for yourself, to self-advocate. But remember, as you do that, advocate with awareness, knowing who you are, what matters to you, leaning on your strengths to help you. Advocate with self-compassion, pushing yourself outwards to speak for what you want, and also pulling yourself inwards to comfort yourself, even when you do not speak up as you wish you should have spoken up. And thirdly, recognizing that speaking up for yourself, self-advocacy, is actually you caring for your heart, caring for your body, your mind, and your spirit. And so, if you want to connect with me, I'll just invite you to scan this QR code. When you do that, you will have some resources that will immediately be sent to you over a period of time to your email. I'm going to send you the values elicitation exercise that I spoke about in self-awareness, so that you really understand who you are and what matters to you, and how you can take baby steps daily and consistently to live a value-based life, which also includes speaking up for yourself. I will also be sharing with you the strength survey, so that you can tap into a scientific approach of recognizing what strengths you have, and then how you can use them, not only in self-advocating, but also in improving your life, your relationships, growing more resilient, and increasing life satisfaction. And thirdly, I will be sharing with you the self-compassion evaluation, so that you can take it and really measure where you are at in showing compassion to yourself. On that note, I want to remind you, you are the expert of your life. You have within you all that you need, and all that you need, you already have. I'm Dinma Nwobi, the Queen of Happiness and Human Flourishing, the founder of Happify Humanity Project, and it's been my pleasure sharing this moment with you. All right, so on that note, have a fantastic day, and remember, keep speaking up for yourself, keep practicing authenticity.